Throughout the 56-year history of watersheds, Kansas has been a leader in the watershed program. In the early 1950s, severe flooding ravaged many communities throughout Kansas. Lives were lost, property damage was severe, and agricultural production suffered because of the flooding. People wanted action. Both Kansas and the federal government stepped forward to address the flooding issue. In 1953, Kansas passed the Kansas Watershed District Act, which created local watershed district boards. These boards were established to implement land treatment and flood control projects to protect Kansas citizens. Also in 1953, Congress passed the Pilot Watershed Program, which provided the opportunity for local sponsors to request federal financial and technical assistance to help address local flooding concerns. Help had finally arrived for Kansans impacted by severe flooding. Since those early days, the Natural Resources Conservation Service has assisted the 67 watershed districts, along with conservation districts, to install over 820 flood prevention and multipurpose watershed dams in Kansas. These dams and the associated upstream land protection practices were installed with funds from the Pilot Watershed Protection Program and Public Law 566, the Watershed Protection and Prevention Act, passed in 1954 when Congress recognized the serious natural resource and economic damages suffered in our nation's watersheds from flooding and soil erosion. Today, watershed dams generate nearly $50 million in annual flood protection in Kansas. This figure represents farmers' crops that went to market instead of being subject to floods and heavy rain damage.
An individual watershed dam is designed to catch runoff from a high rainfall event so that it will hold the runoff and release it slowly so the creeks and rivers don't overflow. It also protects the cropland so farmers can plant and harvest their crops, bridges aren't washed out, and federal reservoirs aren't filling with sediment. NRCS hears comments all the time from landowners. The dams saved their crops, their fields were not destroyed, and roads and bridges weren't washed away so they could get to town in case of an emergency.
There are many other benefits from watershed dams as well, including water supply, recreation, fish and wildlife habitat, and conservation benefits such as reduced tillage, terraces, and riparian buffers that have been installed in watershed districts across Kansas. 7.5 million tons of soil is saved each year because watershed dams prevent flooding and soil movement. 4,400 farms and ranches and 700 bridges are protected each year. Nearly 2,000 miles of stream habitat has been enhanced. The bottom line is watershed dams have been a great investment in Kansas. Public Law 566 installed watershed measures generate almost $2 for every $1 spent.
A distinctive asset of the PL 566 program is that it is locally led. Kansas has been a leader in the watershed program, and for good reason. Planning leadership comes from the watershed districts. In the last 50 years, these organized districts have built 80% of the planned 1,000 watershed dams.
The idea for Public Law 566, commonly called the PL 566 program, that created the nationwide Watershed Protection and Flood Prevention Program, came from Kansas Congressman Clifford Hope of Garden City. He and Senator George Aiken of Vermont co-sponsored the legislation in 1954. Hope strongly believed that local folks in their own communities, with technical and financial assistance from the federal government, were in the best position to decide which flood control and land conservation practices would work best for their watersheds and communities. One of the major benefits of watershed dams in Kansas is flood prevention for communities previously devastated by flooding from heavy rains. Another benefit of small watershed projects is providing water supplies for local communities and preventing water shortages.
The Banner Creek Watershed Project near Holton is a multi-purpose watershed that provides recreation, boating, fishing, camping, and hiking for local residents while also providing a water supply for Holton.
Well, besides the recreational opportunities and the water supply itself, this lake's been used for quite a few educational activities, information activities, meetings, reunions. The State Envirothon was held out here. Ag Day. The watershed is 90% grassland and woodland, so we have a lot of livestock practices, alternate water supplies, cross fencing, brush management to improve the grass stand.
When watershed dams were built in Kansas, local taxes helped provide funds for their construction and continued operation and maintenance.
Due to having the dam in place, why we don't hear people talk about the city of Holton. Used to every other summer would talk about water shortage, and today, why, you don't hear that chatter. So it has been a great source to the city of Holton and the rural water district. I believe it's number 3. And then as far as recreation, and when gas prices got real high, people didn't have to go to Perry and other places to have a little fun on the water.
Today, the State Association of Kansas Watersheds works with local watershed districts across the state to assist in the maintenance and rehabilitation of existing watersheds and to assist watershed districts that are planning or constructing new watershed projects.
The State Association of Kansas Watersheds is an association that is nonprofit that was chartered in 1951 to represent all watershed districts in the state of Kansas. We employ an executive director that tracks legislative and issues relating to watershed districts, and he also conducts workshops and stuff to help them with permitting issues and serves as a liaison between the state, federal, and local agencies with issues. We publish a newsletter to inform watershed districts every quarter. We have our annual meeting and legislative banquet in January, plus we hold meetings bi-monthly to keep the watershed districts informed, and we also employ an executive secretary and are governed by a 9-member board of directors.
Herb Graves, executive director for the State Association of Kansas Watersheds, worked with NRCS during the years many watershed dams were constructed. He says expert planning was the key to building watershed dams designed for flood control or multi-purpose uses.
From an engineering standpoint, the field work provided the on-site topography and hydraulic information, and that was passed on into the design section, which I was also a design engineer, where we actually followed the federal criteria and state criteria to make sure that that dam would be a permittable dam.
Watershed district personnel perform inspections on watershed dams to ensure the dams are functioning correctly. Inspections prevent small problems from becoming larger problems. The inspections also spot any problems that are a result of the impact of the elements on the dams. In the Salt Creek Watershed District near Lincoln, which contains 44 watershed projects, timely inspections are critical.
All of the district conservationists in the counties that the watershed district is in and works with them on the operation and maintenance responsibilities on these structures to help them identify things that need to be taken care of, things that need to be repaired, and to make sure that they get that work done.
Normally we try to do those on an annual basis. We would like to do that every year, and then in special situations after a big storm or something like that, we also want to see an inspection at that point in time to see if there's been any damage to the structure or anything that needs to be repaired. Annual inspections are important in that we get a chance to see how the dam or structure is changing over time, and it provides a baseline for us to see what those changes are. They may be very minor, but over years there's more and more changes happen. Then we get a chance to document that and see how those changes are affecting the structure, whether it's something that is naturally going to happen to the structure or whether it's something that could be a potential problem in the future. Some of the things that we like to look at in our annual inspections are, areas of erosion on the upstream side. Wet areas on the downstream side of the dam are of particular importance to us. Any areas of erosion on the slopes of the dam or in the auxiliary spillway, we'd like to know those and get those repaired as quick as possible, because small problems can become big problems in the future. And if we can handle them when they're small problems, it's much better for the structure.
Watershed manager Ron Golden says the big flood of 1951 pointed out the need for watershed dams to prevent crops from being washed away by periodic flooding and to prevent the destruction of farms, homes, roads, and other property. Another 500-year rain event in 2003 caused flash flooding that was captured and slowly released by the watershed structures throughout Salt Creek.
We had a good test of this watershed in the September of 2003. We received a lot of rain in a part of this watershed, and the structures ran at their emergency spillway levels for up to a day, and that was unprecedented for us in the past. And we were very pleased how the structures all held up and how much reduction of flood damage that was down below the sites that could have, been very costly was limited at least by 50% from having these structures in place.
There are many secondary benefits of these dams throughout the Salt Creek watershed. Many landowners allow free fishing in the watersheds. There is wildlife habitat for waterfowl, songbirds, and game birds such as these wild turkeys. Conservation practices above the dams are a vital part of watershed projects. The Upper Walnut Site number 12 watershed dam near El Dorado has grassed waterways to channel excess water and prevent flooding.
This one, we've got a nice mix of cropland and native range along there. Of course, the native range, we just properly graze it. Then for the cropland, we've got some terraces installed on the cropland to keep it from eroding, and then those terraces require a waterway to be established to drain them into, and so we've got a nice grassed waterway on the back side of this structure. And then the fences around it to manage the cattle.
Other conservation practices in watersheds include terraces, reduced tillage practices, and tree plantings. At the Turkey Creek watershed near Abilene, Supervisory District Conservationist Mark Schmidt says the watershed dam recharges the groundwater supply and provides 3 rural communities with water. Land in the Conservation Reserve Program around the dam traps sediment and reduces the silt load running into the dam.
It also provides some recharge of the groundwater. Usually below these sites, the stream itself will usually flow water most of the year round just because the dam kind of leaks under and also gets in the groundwater. And then we also have a site that provides some public water supply. It supplies 3 small rural communities, probably a population of about 5,000 total, so a lot of extra benefits.
6 pilot watershed projects were implemented in Kansas in 1953. These projects showed the promise to the nation for local leaders and local communities working together with the federal government to address flooding and land treatment needs within small watersheds. The success of the program led to the passage of Public Law 566. The rest, as they say, is history. Today, Kansas truly is a leader in local watershed protection. This leadership was made possible by the strong partnership that NRCS and the watershed districts built over the years. These watershed districts work to acquire land rights and construction permits. Through their local contacts in these communities, they have successfully acquired 90% of the land needed for their watershed projects through donated easements. NRCS provides the financial and technical assistance to build these projects. In her 30 years as a contracting officer in Kansas, Rhonda Solsar has seen the success of this partnership.
The Watershed Program demonstrates the ability of the local watershed district to work hand in hand with the federal government to address issues and achieve results. It has been very rewarding to work with various watershed districts to assist them in addressing numerous legal, environmental, and community challenges and see them overcome these challenges and successfully complete their projects.
Watershed dams are often referred to as the silent protectors. They will continue to protect Kansans' lives and livelihoods today and into the future.